Okay, so we all know that in the past couple of weeks there have been a lot of allegations and confessions about people being harassed by members of the YouTube community. And as you can probably imagine, this isn't an easy video to make, but I was harassed by a member of the YouTube community, and just because they're not an enormous YouTuber, they don't have an enormous following, I don't see why that should exclude them from, I don't see why that should pardon them or mean that they shouldn't be called out on it. They may not be as influential, they may not have as much power as the bigger YouTubers, but it was sexual harassment and it needs to be treated as such. I guess the best place to start would be at the beginning. I was good friends with this person before the incident happened, and there was a big group of us that would always sort of Google Hangout every few nights because we live up and down the country and we miss each other. And so that's what we would do. We would Google Hangout quite often. I should say at the time I was currently running a Not Safe for Work blog, which pretty much all of the people that were in our circle knew about and had seen or had the link to, including this person. And after a few months he made it clear to me that he was attracted to me, and I made it clear in the nicest but clearest way possible that those feelings were not reciprocated, but we continued our friendship. Every so often he would message me with vulgar or inappropriate comments about the things I was posting on my Not Safe for Work blog, and they made me really uncomfortable. After a few months he invited me to his house, which was 400 miles away, to do a video collab. I, wanting to give him the benefit of the doubt, agreed to make the trip. On the run up to the trip, the few weeks running up to the trip, he would ask me on a daily basis if we could make out or do stuff when I arrived at his house, and I made it very clear every single time, and it was a resounding no every single time. Having never met him properly before, I was nervous about what his intentions actually were. As soon as I arrived in his house, I'm talking within the minute that we arrived at his house, he immediately stripped down to his boxers, climbed on top of me and tried to kiss me. I told him no. I told him several times no and to get off before he finally did. As the day wore on, he continued to try and kiss me and touch me over and over and over again, and every single time I told him to stop it and told him no. I was very, very clear about the fact that I didn't want this to happen, considering, I should say, at the time that I was seeing somebody else. Later on that evening, we were on a live Google Hangout on one of my friend's YouTube channels, and he, without my consent, took a picture of my ass and sent it to all of our friends. And when I called him out on this behaviour, he started to cry and emotionally manipulate me until I apologised to him. And I came to realise that this had become quite normal behaviour in our friendship. He very often, when I would turn him down or say no to his advances, he would become very, upset and try to guilt trip me, and I would always end up apologising to him. I was always the bad guy and he was always the victim. This behaviour continued for the rest of that evening and the following day, up until the point where I left. And when I got home and called him out on his behaviour, and asked what the fuck he thought he was doing, he said, "But you gave me a link to your porn blog." Like it gave him the right to my body. Giving someone a link to a blog does not imply consent, and my consent was never forthcoming. After he said what he said, he then denied that anything had happened, still denies it to this day, but then whenever he does decide to accept some kind of responsibility, it's always my fault, and he always tries to make me out to be crazy and like I'm making it up in my head. I've spoken to him on several occasions about this, and to this day he still sticks by his nothing happened story, but then every so often he'll try and convince me it's my fault. So it either didn't happen or it was my fault. You can't have it both ways. His stories just don't add up. The sexual harassment and abusive behaviour that I am describing and talking about today is from a YouTuber called PaulsJournal. I don't understand why he should be allowed to get away with this kind of behaviour. Just because he's a smaller YouTuber, doesn't have quite as much influence. He still has over 5,000 subscribers. That's 5,000 people that he has influence over. Assault and harassment and emotional abuse, any kind of abuse. Emotional abuse is just as prevalent as physical or sexual abuse these days. Abuse is abuse and nobody should get away with it. I'm not looking for sympathy. I was very lucky in that my emotional well-being wasn't hurt or damaged by this incident. I was just very, very angry as somebody who has been in an abusive relationship before. Following this kind of behaviour and following the behaviour of other YouTubers, I really want to raise as much awareness for sexual, emotional, any kind of abuse as possible. You don't have to put up with abuse. You are better than that.